he is primed and set up to go on a legendary run right now. He is primed to go on one of those runs that puts him on that Mount Rushmore with GSP and Anderson Silva and Demetrius and John Jones and those guys that we consider all the best. I think he will do it.
He is, of course, one of the top coaches in the entire sport, the head man at Syndicate MMA, and he is about to be a very, very busy man on October 4th. It is always my great pleasure to catch up with Coach John Wood. Coach, how are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So have you wrapped your head around like what that night's going to be like for you? Because unless they change the bout order, you're literally going back-to-back fights with Khil Roundry and Merab in his title fight. That I know you've had guys on cards like this before, but that's rough, man. Back-to-back and like on the main card, that's a rough deal. Yeah,
it's not the most ideal situation, but dude, I'd be, stupid to be complaining about it. It's one of those things where obviously these are the things you dream about as a young coach or somebody coming up as a fighter, to have these type of fights, to be able to be in these type of corners in that magnitude of an event. So to be really, honest, man, I'm just fortunate. It doesn't stress me out. It is going to be, a mad dash from Khalil after he wins to run back and switch jerseys and then back out again. But I'm sure they'll, set something up for me to make it maybe a little bit easier. But I don't think when the UFC put the card together, they had too much of my personal feelings in mind. So that's okay though. Yeah, it's an awesome experience, man. It's a huge night. I'm really looking forward to it.
So now I'm curious, like, because obviously you got to kind of plan this out. Like, Khalil wins, knockout, decision, whatever it is, he wins. Do you stay long enough to like see his hand raise, or you have to kind of sprint to the back? Because obviously, depending on timing, you have to get changed and get ready to walk out and wrap.
Yeah, I think that we might try to take the team picture a little earlier and then just jet out. But obviously the focus is on the fighters. So however it goes, if he gets him out of there quick, I think that as soon as I get in there and give him a hug and a handshake, I'm jetting back, backstage as quick as possible.
Yeah. So obviously, let's kick things off and let's talk about Merab, of course, going for his third title defense already in 2025. And let's be honest, John, like it's rare for champions to fight twice a year lately. Like twice a year is a feat. 3 times, and I know we'll talk about Merab saying he wants a fourth, but I mean, can you wrap your head around how like crazy this year has been for him to start in January? And I'm certainly not making excuses, but I know he was not 100% for that Umar Nurmagomedov fight.
Not even close. Not even close.
To go in there, win that fight, then come back just a few months later, take out Sean O'Malley and submit him, and then right away turned right around again, and now gets Cory Sandhagen. I mean, it's kind of crazy, like everything he's kind of put into the world, and it's actually all come true this year.
Yeah, it really is, and that's just a testament to the fact of the will and the desire and the hard work that guy puts in and day out. And I do truly believe that he's going to want to do it again. I think he'll fight in December, God willing, no injuries and nothing bad happens. He is just a guy that loves to stay active. He loves to fight. He loves this game. He loves everybody, every bit of it. It's fun for him. Other than the weight cut process, he loves everything. He's really one of those few guys that when it comes fight night, he's excited to be in there. He is excited. He can't wait to get in there. He can't wait to get in and do the thing. I've never seen anybody so happy after the weight cut's over, all the stress and pressure is off. You'd think he had just fought. Then it really is the good go time for him. So it's something, like I said, I really know he enjoys the sport and he loves, being a champion. He loves the fans. He loves performing. He just loves it, braces it. So there's nothing he would rather be doing than being in fight camp and fighting.
We talked after the last one. I remember you telling me before and after the Sean O'Malley fight, you said like, we're going to see finishes. We're going to see Merab going in there, putting guys away, and exactly what he did to Sean O'Malley. And then we talked after the fight. We both kind of assumed it's going to be Cory Sandhagen. He seemed like the guy. And I love Cory, by the way. I think Cory's one of the best guys in the world. He's and one of the nicest guys in the world. But also I look at the rankings. I look at the lay of the land. He's coming off one win. Is it starting to get to the point where it's like Merab has kind of wiped out this division already, and we're gonna get to the world where, like, I know he talked about Petr Yan as a potential for December. Like, he's gonna have to start running back through guys because the options are getting kind of limited already.
Oh, for sure. It's the victory lap, and We get past Sandhagen, then I think Yan is the one up. And then if, I think that there's the set where if Batista beats Umar, then, Batista's done enough. And I think, Merab really respects that kind of path that he's had to take, that kind of grind, very similar to Merab to get to that title shot. So, yeah, I just think that, the thing with the UFC, and we've seen it multiple times in the last year, there's so many young guys and so many talented guys that are coming out that can just step in, win on Dana White's Contender Series, go get a fight, get a good knockout, take a short notice fight, then jump up, somebody falls out, and the next thing you know, they're in a title fight. And, and these young, talented kids, so there's never going to be a shortage of people coming after us for the belt. I mean, and talented guys. But as far as the top 10, I mean, it's looking kind of, like I said, we're going to run a couple laps around it again. But I mean, there's always younger, better guys coming up that are hungry, that will come out of nowhere. You've seen it, like I said, a couple of times. I think Joshua Van, I think he's getting a title shot, right? And just a few fights removed from Contender Series or whatever it was. So there'll be guys, there'll be tons of challenges. I do think we'll have a couple rematches. Obviously, Yan will be one of them. I'm sure they're going to want to put Umar in. If he gets one win, he'll be a shoe-in, of course. But yeah, that's the job, is to go out there and beat everybody and beat the next best guys. And some of those guys are going to have to fight. There's still a lot of good matchups in 135, for them guys to fight each other. O'Malley's, I think, is fighting Song, and that's one I think that, if O'Malley goes on any kind of streak, meaning 2 fights, maybe even 1, I don't know, they'll probably try to throw him back in there. He'll talk his way into it. The star power rankings don't mean much. It really is what kind of push and what kind of pull you get with the brass and the fans.
And I know that, like, all fighters, like, you're always learning, you're always growing. But a lot of times we see a guy or a girl get to becoming a champion. I'm not saying they're a finished product, but you kind of know who they are, right? Like, you kind of recognize them. What's scary about Merab is he's continuously gotten better. Like, we all knew him for his wrestling and his cardio. Now we know him for submissions. We've seen his striking improve. And I know he's talked a lot going into this fight about he wants to knock out Cory Sandhagen. Now, my question to you as a coach, because I remember having this conversation years ago with Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader had a couple of big knockouts, and it's almost like he forgot he was a wrestler. And then he had a couple losses, and he's like, I had to remind myself, I do have an incredible weapon in my back pocket that I just wasn't using. Can I ask, how do you balance that, Merab? Because he gets better in the gym. We've seen his striking improve, but we got to imagine, like, in a perfect world, Cory Sandhagen knows his best way to win this fight is to keep it on the feet, use his striking. So how do you balance that as a coach to, like, say, like, hey, we want to improve, we want to become a striker, but also we don't want to, like, get away from what got us to the race in the first.
Yeah, you just said it. And it's funny because I do these interviews and then I say something about, oh man, Rob is striking. He can knock people out. His submissions, he is subbing people in the gym. He is this, he is that. He is getting better. And then I get a bunch of shit. People are, oh, you're going to change his style. We're not changing anything. Nothing changes. What he does every single day, what you see in the cage, is what he's going to continue to do. We are just adding on. We're adding layers to that. There will never be a point in time where I tell Rob, hey, go out and knock this guy out. Just go stand, keep standing. Don't go to the ground. Like, that's not going to happen. That's not our style. Will it happen by just the fact that it happens because Merab is such a gnarly dude to be in the cage with, that somebody's going to get exhausted, or he does hit hard. He is going to catch somebody someday and he is going to knock them out. Is he going to submit more people? Yes, all those things are going to happen. But it's not at the sake of changing the fighter. It's not at the sake of, we're not changing the style. We add on. I don't want him to be anything else. He doesn't want to be anything else. But why would you not, as a fighter, as a coach, want to improve? Like, you need to keep adding. This is the biggest, craziest thing that I've ever seen or heard, is the fact that, he really is still green. I think we're at 60, 70% of what we can see from Merab. That ceiling is still, we're not even close to touching that ceiling yet. The things that I've seen him do in this camp are mind-blowing. The things I'm seeing him do with people, the things I'm seeing him pull off, it's just like, dude, where did that come from? Where is this this new Merab. And it's not, like I said, he's not out there, trying to be a kickboxer. He's not out there trying to be a jiu-jitsu guy. He's doing what he's doing. He's just now recognized the fact that when someone's ready to be out of there, he's going to appease them and try to sub them, try to give them away. Hey, you're tired. Go ahead, bye, get away, get out of here. And that's it. There is no, we're not, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. I see all those comments and all that stuff all the time. No, of course it's not broke. We're trying to make it better. We're trying to keep going on. And here's the thing. If we don't sub Sandhagen, great. It's not for lack of trying. It's not lack of things. Maybe Sandhagen was able to stop everything, or he's just so good because he is one of the best guys in the world that it doesn't present itself. So, there's lots of layers to fights and lots of layers to fighters and how you keep them in check or falling in love. I've seen it millions of times. A wrestler gets a knockout, all of a sudden realizes, holy shit, I can throw these things. This is easier. And you've seen it. I could name 10 guys off right off the bat that have done that have knocked somebody out, and they go out and knock them out again. And all of a sudden that's their shift. We're not doing that. We're not going to get away from what got us to the dance. We're just adding to it. And if those things come naturally, then they come. But Merab is not looking to, and if anybody knows by now, like stuff that Merab says and does in the media, it's like, if you're still, oh my God, he said this or did that, or his head's cracked open, he can't fight, he's injured, everybody relax. It's okay.
And let's not forget, knockout can also mean ground and pound. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be on the feet. So knockout can be, ground and pounding is way to fight. So.
100%. Like that is the goal. The goal is to finish fights. And now I have a man and a fighter who knows and believes he can finish fights. And that is a scary thing. When you have a guy who is that motivated and that talented and that relentless, he's going to finish fights. Is he going to finish every fight? I doubt it. I don't think that's, I don't think everybody finishes every fight, but would we like him to? Yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome.
But this is going to sound like an odd question, but I know when you're in the gym, coach, you are doing everything possible to make Merab, or all your fighters for that matter, go to the worst case scenario. So when they get in the fight, they're ready for whatever happens. Here's my question, because Merab has the most ridiculous gas tank and cardio I think we've ever seen in this sport. It literally never ends. I'm like seriously in awe of the way he can just keep going.
You have no idea.
So I'm curious, in the gym, because I know it's not in a 25-minute title fight, in the gym, what do you do to physically exhaust Merab Dvalishvili? What do you have to put this guy through to where at the end of the day, he's like, hold on now, I need a break, I need to catch my breath?
I'll be honest. Full transparency, I have not seen that happen yet. And it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of, he's going with some of the best guys in the world. Literally, the best guys in the world. Aljo was in here working with him, with numerous other world champion kickboxers, wrestlers, the best guys in the world. And whatever you throw at him, he just gets stronger. It just keeps going. I saw some bad stuff happen today, some things that you would think, oh, that's it. There was a moment. There was a bad moment, and guess what he did? 30 seconds later, came back, turned it on. You would have never known that moment happened. You would have never known that there was any kind of anything going on, and destroyed the rest of the rounds to a point where I can't physically do it. Like, I've tried. There's a lot of things we do to try to make those things happen. But he gets done 5-6 rounds in the cage, 5-6 rounds on the mat with the rest of the guys. And I do not know. I could not physically, mentally tell you how he does it, other than he's got a gift from God and he's got the willpower that's unmatched.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy. You think, like, that's how you're like, I got to tire this guy out. It is an unwinnable test.
I've tried. I've got techniques that make people puke. I've got things and drills and stuff. Dude, you cannot break this guy. You cannot shake him. You cannot hurt him in the point that where you would even notice. Like, there's moments and times where certain things have happened where I'm like, hey, you okay? So, I'm fine. And then just goes back out there and dominates and crushes. It's dude, it really is a thing to behold. It's insane.
I think what, and I've talked to Merab many times, I think what makes Merab also very special is the fact that he he never looks at anyone and says, this is not my toughest challenge. I remember talking to him before Henry Cejudo. I remember talking to him before a lot of fights. And going back to January against Umar, like Umar was like the popular sexy pick, right? Like everyone's like, oh, Umar's the guy. Merab beats him. The O'Malley rematch, the narrative had shifted. He was no longer the underdog. He was the favorite, but there was that idea that like, oh, he was healthy. He didn't have the hip problem. He'd been
two good hits.
Gave up weed, all that stuff. And so, maybe O'Malley. Now, this time, I think the narrative has shifted again to where it's like, we expect Merab to win. Like, no, I love Cory. I'm being clear about that. I think Cory's a very dangerous fighter, but I think Merab is pretty heavily favored in most circles to win. That's a trap fight, though, right? Because obviously 100%. The last thing you want to do is go in there thinking you got it handled, and then the worst happens. So can I imagine, like, it's the same approach as it was, not the same game plan, but the same approach as it was for Umar, as it was for O'Malley, knowing that I would imagine the vast majority of people are not picking Sandhagen to win this.
You know, you think that, and then you watch these interviews, and then you start seeing people post and everything, oh, he's getting knocked out, he's getting this. I'm like, what world do you think that like, what would ever give you the idea that that's going to happen? But everybody's entitled to their own opinions, and that's great. That's what makes this sport and makes this world great, is we're supposed to be allowed to have our own opinions. But the thing is that Merab is one of those guys that I don't have to keep him on track to motivate him to go, hey, you know, I always let him know, like, listen, this one's a little different because, like, we've kind of had history and beef with guys before. It's been easy. Sandhagen's a great guy. Seems like a great guy. I don't know him personally. Love his fighting style. I think he's a great fighter. He's got great coaches. But there is no, like, animosity. But Merab isn't a guy that I have to have that with to make him motivated to show up. Again, this is probably his friendliest, most peaceful camp, and he's working harder than I've ever seen him. The motivation is that you had to work so hard to get here, and now you have this guy, whoever it may be, standing across from the cage and wants to take it all away. That is enough for that man to go, not happening. I'm going to work. And he always tells me, like, push me harder. Do not let me settle. Push me harder. I'm like, dude, I'm pushing you as hard as I can. And so he is so self-motivated, and just he's up for whatever happens, however it happens, whoever it is. And that's what defines and makes him a champion. That makes him different from the rest, is the fact that, like, I've never had to say, if anything, I'm going to be like, Merab, I need you to take just a couple hours off, take a day off, take a half day, do something. Like, you can barely walk, you can this, you can that. I've seen that man, like I said, crawl into this gym half dead and then get into the cage and destroy people for 5 rounds and then crawl out of the cage and go home and nearly die. He is just, the mental part of him is insane. So he's ready. He's always got that thought. It's like, you are not going to take what I have.
I'm not going to pat myself on the back too hard, Coach, but I will say, like, I've been on the Merab train for quite a while, going back to several fights before he became champion, and this is a guy who's going to become champion. And I've never really doubted him, but even going out the Umar fight, like, man, the Umar fight is tough. And to his credit, Umar is a tough fight, but obviously we're not beat him. Obviously, he gets Sean, and then he goes out and beats Cory. Now, I know the focus is only October 4th. It's Cory Sandhagen, and I know a lot of fighters say the next day doesn't exist until you get through that one. But he's talked about, hey, I will turn around. He said it after O'Malley, like, hey, give me another one. I want to be back in there, and they booked him. Yep. He's already said, like, December, Petr Yan, that's the matchup. In your heart of hearts, I know as a coach, you're like, your focus is Cory Sandhagen October 4th. But everything goes like the way that Merab has gone this year. Is there a reality where we could actually see him in a 4th title fight this year?
100%. Like, no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt that once he gets past, once he gets past Cory, he's going to want to fight again, unless there's some kind of injury. And even that, I still think he would try to pull it off. If he's healthy, I think December is a go. He's already got it set in his mind. And when that man has something set in his mind, he's going to do it. So, not overlooking anything, I can go on and just say for sure, no one needs to worry that he's overlooking Cory. Not the case at all. He just gets a thing in his mind, and this is what I'm going to do, and I believe he truly will. The UFC loves that kind of shit. You saw it with, Pereira. If you got a guy, hey, I'll fight next week. Hey, you want to fight next week? Yeah. And as long as said he's healthy and he's ready to go and it makes sense, then I do not see a world where that doesn't exist.
That would probably be the most ridiculous run for a champion in any single year in history. And I know we talked about this after the O'Malley fight. You said that I've said this. He's already established himself as the best bantamweight of all time. I think that's hard to argue against. And you told me back then, you said the next goal would be kind of pound for pound. Now I know him and Ilya, they're boys. That they're friends, obviously very close. But I think Ilya, obviously vaulted. Now, of course, you got Islam going up to welterweight and fighting in November. So I want to give Ilya his flowers as well, or Islam his flowers as well. But do you believe, like, if Merab caps off this year the way that we're talking right now, and I know we're talking future, but like he deserves that. Like, I think it's a 3-man race. It's Islam, it's Ilya, and it's Merab. But Merab, I feel like Merab doesn't get enough credit for where he should sit in those pound for pound rankings.
I mean, after that last fight, I think he was number 2, or he sat up there for a second. But it always switches with whoever fights and how they fight and who's in the media's eye and the public's eye. So, after this fight, I think we move back up to 2 or 1. And I think you're going to have those guys, as long as those 3 guys are always winning, it's going to be between those 3 guys, and I think arguably, that Merab has had the toughest schedule, but at the top, you're always fighting. All those guys are fighting the best guys, and obviously I'm biased to my guys, so I think he's the best, out of the bunch. But that is kind of what you're looking at as like the new Mount Rushmore of this era's fighters. In Rob, if he does get this 4th fight in December, I don't think there's any question. Nobody's doing that. I should say Pereira did. Pereira had a good. I think he got 3 in a year. I'm not sure if he got that 4th, but it's something special. I've said it and I'll say it again. He is primed and set up to go on a legendary run right now. He is primed to go on one of those runs that puts him on that Mount Rushmore with GSP and Anderson Silva and Demetrius and John Jones and those guys that we consider all the best. I think he will do it also.
It's terrifying. You said 60 to 70%. I can only imagine what the other 30% is going to be like when he reaches that pinnacle. I'm
telling you, I just got done watching him spar today, and there was just moments where just all of us after just like, how is this? How? It's crazy. It really is super impressive.
So, of course, on the other side of this fight card for you is Khalil Rountree fighting Jiri Prochazka, a fight that I think we all kind of assume, and I know Yuri's talked about it publicly as a number 1 contenders fight. Makes a lot of sense. The winner of this will get a title shot. I think what we saw with Khalil's last fight with Jamal Hill, I mean, we just saw, I think, a different animal than even we saw against the Pereira fight. Like, he came out there sharper, looked nastier. There's moments where I'm like, I don't know how Jamal survived this. Credit to him for doing it. But and Yuri, I know all the talk on this fight is Yuri's so crazy, so awkward, he's so, unorthodox. But that also puts you in danger. We saw it in the Pereira fight. When he fought a really clean striker, Pereira didn't fall for the tricks. He just went out there and knocked him out. And I feel like, and I'm not sure, I like Yuri. I think Yuri's a very good fighter. But I feel like this is a little similar. Like, Khalil's such a clean, like, technical striker that crazy stuff kind of opens up Yuri for the bad stuff when he's not being. Yeah. Am I right in thinking that?
100%. It's a double-edged sword, when you fight like that. You're gonna excuse me, sorry, I got this nasty cough right now. You're going to win a lot of fights because of that style, but you're also going to lose fights because of that style. And I think this is a phenomenal matchup for us. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be violent, bloody. Nothing in my bones tells me it's going 3 rounds. There's no thought process for that, where no world where I go, I think it's going to go to a decision. If it does, like I said, they're going to be very damaged. There's going to be eyeballs hanging out, ears falling off, type of fight. But it does, going back to Jamal, Khalil was very injured for that fight. 4 weeks of no sparring. 4 weeks he fully tore his meniscus before that. We really weren't doing anything but standing in place and trying to let the knee heal so that we could perform. So I believe you could have seen an even more vicious version of Khalil in that fight than we had. So I'm very proud of him, and it like really makes me feel good as a coach when the guys can go out there half cocked essentially and still dominate like that. So he's taken that and built on it in this camp. It really is the best Khalil I've seen. It really is. It really, like, we've had some ups and downs in camps, and the last camp wasn't great, but camp for Pereira was good. But this one is he's leaving no stones unturned. He's doing the work, and I can truly stand behind that and say he's actually competing like a mixed martial artist now. He knows he's at the top, and we're just making sure that we're covering all these bases. So I really think you're going to see the best Khil Roundry out there, and I love the matchup. I love this fight. Like I said, as a fan, it's great, but as a coach, I love it. You got a crazy weird guy, but that crazy weird stuff does open you up, and I think it really does play into our benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we talked about this fight after the Pereira fight. We thought, Yuri's a really good fight. Didn't happen. I had to wait one more, and now this is a great, and it's perfect that it's on the same card as the title.
Yeah.
I know the UFC does this on purpose. They like to set up the next guy with that, so it kind of does seem kind of perfect that Khalil wins. He would get the winner of Pereira and Ankalaev, I believe.
Agreed. I don't see anybody else out there right now. Not that even, like, there's a couple guys obviously milling around. I think you got Olberg and Reyes fighting, and that's a big fight too. But the hype behind Jiri and Khalil and the wins, that I think that's where everything is primed right now. I can't see, especially the way this fight is going to be won, that person isn't going to fight for the title. And I truly believe that person's going to be Khalil, obviously.
Yeah. Real quick before I get you out of here, Coach, let me ask you, because Khalil's got his fight, which I think is like everyone's, like, we don't need to talk about that fight. We know it's going to be good. Like, we know that's going to be a freaking amazing. However long it lasts, it's going to be amazing. But can I ask your opinion on the main event? Because Magomed Ankalaev waited so long to get his title shot, and he went in there and won, and I thought he had a great performance. And that's not, he didn't even really get takedowns on Pereira. Everyone's like, oh, he's got to stop the takedowns. Well, he did, but he still lost the fight. Pereira's coming back, and I'll be honest, just like I said, I know I said this to you with the O'Malley fight. I said, I'm not a big fan of guys who lose in pretty lopsided fashion, coming back and immediately getting a rematch. I was like, I'm not a big fan of that. But here we are. Can I ask, like, obviously the fight's going to be different, but, like, do you ultimately see a path to victory, likely a path to victory for Pereira, or do you feel like Ankalaev has kind of figured it out and it's going to be a tough road for Alex?
I do see a path to victory for Pereira. The man has dynamite in his hands, and that's always going to give you a path to victory. I don't know, and I said this, and I said this totally respectfully, on a different thing, that I saw, when he was leading up to that fight, I saw Pereira at a lot of events. I saw him all over the world. I saw him everywhere. I think the night before, whatever, he was at LFA. He was at, Karate Combat. He was here. He was there. And for periods of time. So I'm not sure. I always kind of would question. I had no idea. Maybe that method works for him, and that's how they did things. So I'm not one to judge that. But, maybe questioning how serious he took that fight. And he has been fighting a lot, dude. That burnout of that turnover of fighting. And sometimes when you're just so dominant, you kind of like, eh. So I do question how serious he was involved for that fight, how hard of a camp he had, how healthy he was. So if we get a fully healthy, committed Pereira, that is a scary dude. And until you can prove or disprove the fact that he's on the downhill, one loss doesn't necessarily dictate that means you're not a champion anymore. You're not champion caliber. You're not this, and especially the way he lost. It wasn't like he got dominated, but it wasn't like a barn burner fight where he just got smoked and ragdolled and thrown around and beaten and bloody. So my thought process is, if he goes out there and throws and does what we've seen Pereira do before, he can absolutely knock out anybody. That man for sure. And that being in the corner against him, being at the weigh-ins and seeing how just menacing looking, his hands, his head, everything, like, you just can't bet against him. You can't, there's always, to say that there is no path. I think there's clearly a path. Now, Ankalaev, obviously, let's say that was the best Pereira, and you're going to get the best Ankalaev again, then I think we're going to see something very similar to that fight. but I think he's going to throw a little more caution to the wind and let those hands go, and then we'll see what happens.
I know you're a metal guy like me. You gotta love that Alex walks out to the Sepultura. I don't know if you saw Max Cavalera's new band Soulfly. They named their new album Chamba. I was like, that's
I just saw that. Yeah.
Now I know you are a metal guy. Now you're in camp right now, but I saw the wife was rocking a Danzig shirt. I love the Danzig shirt. Yep. Have you been to any shows lately? Or you got any shows playing like after the UFC event?
I went to 2 weeks ago. I went to Pantera. Pantera was out here at T-Mobile. That was phenomenal. Loved it. Like it was my childhood all over again. I was just like almost in tears. I was so happy to hear these guys playing and see them, Phil's up there barefoot and old and, whatever, barely moving, but voice sounded great. It was awesome, dude. Like that one is going to stick with me for a while. It was so good. Anytime I can see, I just don't know how much longer, especially with metal, like to be able to perform and sing like these guys do, it blows my mind that they're doing it past 40, So to be able to see these guys still killing it out there and sounding great, it warms my heart. And I dread the day that we start losing, bands and things and not playing anymore. It's just like Ozzy this year. That was a rough week. Ozzy and Hulk Hogan, man, that was devastating, But yeah, I love metal, and anytime one of those kind of bands or any band in general comes through, I love going to shows.
It's funny you mentioned that. So I'm showing my age here, but I actually was at Ozfest years ago when Ozzy reunited with Black Sabbath. So I got to see Ozzy and Black Sabbath, and the opening, well, not the opening, but the band right before them was Pantera. And at the time, I was working at a record store in Cincinnati where I'm from, and I got to go backstage and I got to do shots of Jack with Pantera. Never got to meet Ozzy, unfortunately. Never got to get close to Ozzy, but like I was so happy that I was there for that. And I did see Ozzy one other time solo. I know it's weird you think that when a guy passes away, but I'm just like, I'm so glad I got to see him at his best. Yeah. Ozfest, like it was just so cool. Like, I got to see Ozzy and I got to see him with Black Sabbath. It was like that. I'll never forget that moment.
I saw every Ozfest until Ozzy, when he stopped doing them, and then the other bands. And I was at the first one all the way to like 10 of them, 12 of them, whatever, every year. So I saw that Pantera Ozfest one. And oddly enough, I got to meet Phil Anselmo from Pantera is a huge fight fan. So we got to go backstage one time. I think me and Matt Brown backstage to hang out with him and meet him. And dude, he just talked fighting the whole time. He was talking boxing, fighting. He loved it. So it's really cool when those guys are big fans of the sport too.
Yeah, I just saw System of a Down in Chicago. I drove to Chicago to see System and Sevenfold. So I was like, because I saw System of a Down at Ozfest years ago. They were on the second stage, like they weren't even on the main stage at that point.
Yeah, I saw him there too. I saw Slipknot on the second stage. So
wild. Well, we're going to catch a metal concert one of these days, Coach. I think it's kind of Well, Coach, I appreciate the time as always, man. Obviously, have a great rest of training camp. No traveling, which I know is nice after you had to go to Azerbaijan for the one fight. You get to stay at home for this one, but try not to get too crazy with back-to-back fights in this one. But I appreciate the time as always, and I'm sure we will catch up after 2 more big wins.
Yes, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on anytime. I love it.